Hi, everybody. It is so great to see so many people here. Yay! Thanks for joining NEMA for today's Small Museum meeting. I'm Jen Wilson. I'm the Director of Programming and Advocacy with New England Museum Association, and I am joined by my colleague, Heather Riggs. I'm actually going to turn it over to her really quickly for some quick housekeeping.
Welcome, everybody. Heather Riggs, she, her, Director of Administration here at NEMA, and I should probably slow down a little bit. I've had too much coffee. It's conference time. Right now, NEMA is in the process of redoing our museum document exchange. It's one of our most requested benefits, but we're in desperate need of redoing all of our policies and collecting new ones. If you have any policies, especially for small museums, because that's the key demographic for this service, please send them into the NEMA office. I'm going to put a link there with more information on it. And our intern Kira will be able to help you do that. So this is just for NEMA members. So it's on our website. You have to log in to do it. So it's not there out in the public, but we are looking from anything from collection policy, personnel policy, social media policy, basically any policy or document that you could think of to run a museum. We do need samples of it. What happens if someone's doing their collection policy or disaster policy? They just want to see what other people have done as an example. And so that's just one way to help your fellow NEMA members, help the museum field. So definitely check that link out there. And if you have any questions, just let one of the staff member knows. Thanks. And back to you.
Thanks, Heather. So thank you all for being here again. This is a really great topic. We have had a lot of interest in small museums and programs. So I'm going to hand it right over to our three PAG chairs to do introductions. And then we'll get started because we want to maximize the time that we have together. All right. So Dory, I'm going to hand it right over to you.
Excellent.
Great.
Hello. Thank you so much, NEMA folks. And thank you everybody for being here. I'm so excited to see you all. I'm really excited to talk about this subject. I'm going to launch a little presentation here. I'm just gonna chatter my way through there. Okay. All right. So this is just to give you a sense of who we are. We are the Small Museums PAG. That is myself, Doria Hughes. I'm currently in New Hampshire because I'm visiting family, but I'm usually based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I run the Rosemary Beck Foundation, which is based in New York. And that's the whole story of how I am in Massachusetts and I run a small museum in New York. It works. We also have Louise, who is representing the Museum of Bad Art, and we have Samantha, who represents the Big E. And so we're all very much enmeshed and interested and passionate about small museums in the New England area. So let's see. Oh, goody. So this COINS thing that I came up with a couple of years ago, it's just an acronym and it stands for a number of wonderful qualities that I feel sum up small museum standards of excellence. And I just always like to kind of throw those out just to kind of keep in mind because small museums are often defined by what we don't have and what we're not. And this is a way to define us positively in terms of what we do have and what we're good at and where we can kind of think in terms of when we want to come up with being our best selves and offering our best, for instance, programs. So collaborative has to do with partnerships. That's something I'm particularly passionate about, being oriented to our community, our communities, being innovative, thinking outside of the box, being nimble, able to change course or come up with different ideas quickly and implement them, and specialized or locationally specific, which is something that some small museums get worried about, and yet I think it's a great strength. So yay. Yay, us. So our featured small museum of the month, which we try and do, is one that I particularly love. It's from my hometown of Cambridge. It's called History Cambridge. They were originally known as the Cambridge Historical Society, which is, you know, a lot of small towns and cities and places in our country have historical societies, and they sort of rebranded themselves and started thinking differently. There's some pictures of them throughout time. The black and white picture is an older one, and then we have the newer picture. And they wanted to really think outside of the box and think outside of the building in terms of their activities and their outreach. The house had the original house they felt had a bit of a sort of an elitist traditionalist look, and they wanted to sort of go beyond that. So that was part of their rebranding, and they started getting out of the house more and more for a lot of their activities. So this is something Marika Van Dam, who is their director, shared a number of these photographs, sort of stealing from some of her presentations that she's done when I've worked with her, just illustrating some of the activities that they've done. They started moving into different neighborhoods and areas and partnering in different areas of Cambridge, going into bars and sharing and reaching out. And they got a really, really good response from people in the community trying to sort of get conversations going. So rather than hosting everything within their space, which is sort of the traditional way, is like everybody come to us, they took the tack of going, we're going to go to where people are, and try and meet people in our community where they are and get conversations starting. So that started really working. This is what they call their history cafes, where they sort of would find what are called third spaces, like cafes or bars or places like that, and host events there for people that were conversational and intimate. Then, of course, along came the pandemic, and so that quality of being nimble that small museums are often really good at, that really came into the fore. And so they started trying to use the space outside of their building more, but also close down or shut down shops and places around town. They started putting up signs and information and other kinds of prompts for the community just around town. And they put out surveys, but also just questions and answers trying to kind of engage the community. So they did like a lot of traditional programming and traditional kinds of things, just reaching out online, but then also, again, reaching out beyond the box, beyond their house. This is a really cool event that they did. I just thought that was wonderful. Right at the top here, you can see our then mayor, Sumbul Siddiqui, involved. They called it Good Riddance 2020. Everybody was just feeling so fed up with the pandemic. They got out their shredder, which they had, and they let people come and fill out cards about things that they were really sick of with the pandemic, and then shred them kind of ritually. And this was really popular. It went over very well. And even the mayor showed up, which I just thought was kind of brilliant. And so using that sort of outside space, and just again thinking outside the box, I just thought that was fantastic. And it was just fun. I think it was a way to kind of spark some joy and love and snark and all of that. And then they went around town. They found, they started doing a lot of tours and things, not just in their space, but just in different neighborhoods and areas of the town, which I thought was really terrific. And that's continued beyond the pandemic. They continue to do these, taking out, going to outdoor activities, using outdoor spaces and not just their space, but other places around town where they would meet people. And then thinking about still how they could make their house work for them. They did the really cool program called Forgotten Souls of Tory Row, because technically where they live is what's known as Tory Row in Cambridge. It's associated with loyalists during the Revolution who then later fled. And this was a wonderful event where they sort of took a deeper dive and look into African American history within those communities that hadn't really been discussed. And it was an outdoor event and an artistic installation, which continued for a really long time. And that was pretty fantastic. So yeah, and then they do outreach of different sorts and history kits, and they just sort of partner up with a lot of different places. So yes, that is History Cambridge. I think they are awesome. And I just wanted to, whoops, I have a missing graphic there, but I just wanted to make a plug for our Facebook group where you can join us online. And NEMA Small Museum PAG, Let's Chat. It's a little bit of a long, unwieldy title, but that's where we are, just to be able to continue these conversations and share things as we continue forward in time. So I have done a lot of talking, and I'm going to stop for now and move this along so that other people, I'm going to actually pass this on to my cohort. Let's see, Samantha, do you want to speak next?
Sure.
Since it's an open forum, I thought this is where we're going to start to sort of share ideas for activities.
Yeah. So when it comes to the biggie, we're the Eastern States Exposition, and we have two main museums on our grounds. One is Storedon Village Museum, which is primarily what I work in. And then we also have the Eastern States Exposition History Museum. Today, I'll be focusing a little bit more on what activities we do in the village. And everyone knows, if you know about the fair, that it's coming up in less than 18 days or just about 18 days, which is not my favorite thing to say, but it is what it is. And when it comes to activities that we do, even year round, um, budget is always on our mind of what can we do that is still going to be it'll still get people's attention, it'll still be fun, but it's also not going to break the budget. We have everything from marble tracks made out of paper towel and toilet paper tubes. So tying back to a 19th century activity, but made in the modern day for kids, and everyone has toilet paper tubes and paper towel rolls. Um, but I don't necessarily do the youth education side, so I can't talk about those activities. What I want to focus on today is our museum partner program. We started this last year, and we were really trying to think about how we could bring something to fairgoers that brought history to them, that was still something that they could look at and learn from and just, get something out of it. During the fair, it's hard to do hands-on activities every day. It's hard to find demonstrators that want to be there all 17 days of the fair, but we had a space that was open that we wanted to provide something to people. And thus the museum partner program was born. What we do is we invite local historical societies, museums, we invite them to the fair and they get to table. They have to talk about their museum. They have to demonstrate something. It could be bringing a children's activity. It could be bringing artifacts or items from their museum. It could also just be bringing visuals of what they do, because not every museum has a lot of physical objects that are easy to move. So just really trying to focus on what they do. They volunteer their time. We give them a way to come in. And for us, all that looks like is providing them a tent, weights so the tent doesn't fly away, chairs and a table, and then again, the way to get onto the grounds. That's something that has had a lot of success. We're in our second year now and it's grown. And this is something that I also volunteer for another historic society. And bringing this, we've also done that program in a similar way where we have historical societies come in and they get to talk about what they do and the public really enjoy it. They get to see other parts about what their community is doing. So that's one of the activities that we've been able to provide that isn't necessarily the most expensive thing to do. Okay. If I see someone wants to learn more about it, my email should be somewhere. I can put it in the chat. So if you do want to know more, the fair is in 18 days, so you can't do it this year, but we can talk about it for next year. Louise, did you want to go next? Was that how we were doing it, Doria? Yeah.
Sorry, I had to unmute. I'm Louise Riley Sacco. I'm with the Museum of Bad Art. For those of you who don't know, you're right. It's a very unusual museum. And we're also just at the far end of the definition of small museums. We have no paid staff. We've been around for 30 years, but we're run completely by volunteers. That limits what we can do and want to do with events. But one of the things that a strategy that has worked for us that I can recommend to you is that we try to build events around an object, and we look for an object that is distinctive. It's the oldest, the biggest, the newest, the weirdest, the whatever, but it's got some kind of an extreme. And I'm going to just, if possible, share a couple of photos here. Maybe or maybe not.
Do you have that share button down at the bottom, the green one?
I have the share. There it is. Share, and it's going a little wonky on me. I'm not in my regular place with my regular things. I'm sorry about this. All right, I'm going to just stop this for a second and go back to the beginning of, this is at the end of my, yeah,
I'm enjoying the visuals.
sorry about this. I thought I had this set, but evidently I don't. All right, I will just tell you then. Let's stop sharing. That we have our one of our weirdest paintings or pieces is a unique portrait of a man that we call Worried Man. The piece is about 4 feet tall, 3 feet wide. It's a very worried looking man whose hair is a 3D structure made of piano wire. And it's always been an attention getter. It's fun. So what kind of event would we create around such a painting? Well, we went back and looked at notes we had on the where this thing came from. Rosalie Gale in Seattle donated it to us. She had found it in a dumpster and took it home, and she decided to write down everything she was worried about and stick those bits of paper on his wire hair and let him worry about it. When she gave it to us, it had bits of paper on it that about her worries. It said large bodies of water, too much stuff, money, spiders. Well, for our Worried Man event, we invited people to come and write their worries on bits of paper and leave them with him. The event was free, but we sold books and postcards and T-shirts and suggested donations. And it ended up being a very successful event for us because we had about 60 people, which is good for us. We took in around $600 in merch sales and merchandise sales and donations. And we have archived some of the worries that people left on him. And here are a couple of them. Everything from the future of American democracy to burning the cookies were the worries that were left. It was a fun event. We had a lot. We had a good audience for us, and by building it around one of our objects, it really worked. We were doing a similar thing in Quebec within the next. We have a gallery in Quebec too, with a painting that has a large slash down the middle. So we're inviting fans to come and explain this. What do you think is going on? And the part of the thinking there is not only do we like to build things around an object, we want it to be interactive in some way, and that's really been working well for us. That's what I have. Let's see who is visiting us today, want to tell us about events or questions that they have.
Yeah, if you want to unmute yourself, raise your hand, or however you want, this is where we would love to hear. This is the beginning of our open forum. We want to hear your example of something along these lines that you did, however wacky, strange, or if you did something and it didn't work. We'd love to hear that too, because not everything works, but hey, you got to try, right? Who wants to be brave? Christian LeBlanc, is it?
Yeah.
Go for it.
How you doing, folks? I'm up at the 5th Maine Regiment Museum on Peaks Island in just off of Portland, Maine. And we did a similar event that Louise had mentioned where we have an ongoing exhibit until the end of the season this year. And in that exhibit, we allow folks to send postcards. And so postcards are very cheap and they're simple to attain. And so we use those postcards that they can sit down and write to anybody. But then as an added clause to it, what we did is we got the address to our Maine state veterans homes. And so they can choose to write to one of their family members, or they can choose to write to any veteran at the veterans homes that we have 6 located throughout Maine. So I worked a little bit of coordination with the Maine veterans, and then that was an easy buy-in on both sides. So that's another thing where, yeah, okay, we pay postage. But it's a simple one that just gets people to sit down and they're in the exhibit longer. So that was just our take on that one.
Ooh, I like that. Nice. That is a good one. Anybody else want to contribute? I like hearing these. You can just jump right in, anybody.
Oh, I'm Cheryl Crooms. I have a small nonprofit. We are a house museum in the making. And so we're all volunteers. And we're doing an event. We're based on African American life in the late 1800s, early 1900s, before civil rights. And so we participate and do tours, we do presentations, but we're getting ready to have an event where we're participating with other nonprofits, and we will be showing our artifacts. You said to have a single subject. So we've invited the state archives, Friends of the State Archives, and I'm in North Carolina, and they will bring North Carolina archives. I'll have Turner House archives. We have one other house museum that is run by the city, the Manassas Pope House. He was a doctor, one of the first 3 doctors licensed in the state of North Carolina. We'll have his surgical equipment and what they call a shadow box. So we're hoping that it's on the 6th of September. So we're hoping that will excite people to come and take part in this event, which is named Walk Up. And so there'll be several different nonprofits and people opening up their gardens and artwork and music in this neighborhood. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that that'll be unique enough for people to say, "Hey, I want to check that out."
Very cool. I love the connection with other local nonprofits too. That's a big passion of mine. I feel like that's an area of potential success for all of us is
Yes,
don't
yes,
go it alone. Don't
yes.
feel alone or, yeah, I know with my nonprofit, we have a lot of limitations in terms of access and that sort of thing. And in situations where we've been able to partner up with other local places that have aligned missions or activities, we've done really well. Anybody else have ideas like this? I like
I
all.
don't have I don't have a camera,
Oh, that's
so
okay.
but I'm here. Um,
Yay.
Jan Clouds, and I'm with Vassalboro Historical Society. And a couple of things. We participate in the Central Maine Heritage Council, which is all of the local historical societies. We get together every 6 months and we talk about things like this. And it's been very helpful for all of us. And we also, that our local Grange is very active, and they have, right now, they've done coffee on the porch every Tuesday morning. And because coffee on the porch will get cold because we're in Maine, I offered our historical society. So as soon as the weather changes, coffee on the porch will be at the historical society. So it will bring people in. They also plan on doing a fundraiser for us next year. We'll do a play. So it's very exciting. And I love, reaching out. The Grange is not only our neighbor for some of our buildings, but of course it's historical, and so are we. So that's what we're
That's
doing.
super cool.
Thank
Yeah, who
you.
doesn't love coffee? I'm a tea person, but still, I love the concept. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, Louise?
Yeah, I wanted to throw in one more. This was years ago, but we can't be the only museum that ends up with stuff that we don't want. People give you things that you just don't want. And we several times have had, we call that our rejection collection. We have rejection collection auctions. And to make it more interesting, if you buy something through the rejection collection, you get a certificate that says this was rejected by the Museum of Bad Art. And that kind of made it fun. And we got rid of a lot of stuff that was just clogging up the curator's garage. But any museum, many museums are going to end up with things they just don't want. And we would have been willing to just dump this stuff, but we raised some funds, we had some fun, and got some people to like us more.
That is brilliant. I love that. I'm a big fan of deaccessioning too. So yeah. Oh, I see Nancy
Forgot how to read my
Hoffman.
Yes, it is. It's Nancy 3 Hoffman. My middle number is 3. I'm from the Umbrella Cover Museum, which is also on Peaks Island, where the Fifth Main Museum is. So we have 2 very active museums here during the summers. Yay, Christian, hi. We're a museum of just the sleeves and cases off of umbrellas. It's quirky, it's fun. We have the Guinness World Record for the most umbrella covers. Cool, Vanessa. And our motto is celebrate the mundane. So it's actually got kind of a philosophical mission statement. People come in, they're always surprised to see it. And then we do a tour, 15 or 20 minutes, lots of different exhibits, and it's really fun. So next year's our 30th anniversary. So I'm trying to plan a special event. It's possible that the Guinness World Record people will come back for a recount. That would be a big deal. But the whole idea of partnering with other museums is very cool. I love that. We've got, over the years, I've had interns from the age of about 6 up to 22. And we want to do an honoring the interns celebration. So it would be a reunion and bringing back interns to my museum. Oh, I should have put a background of my museum on here. I'll do that after I finish talking so you can see what it looks like. So I'm just putting it out there that we're planning something. It'll probably be in July. Peaks Island, you have to get to Portland first and then take a 20-minute ferry ride over. But if people have other ideas for me, thank you, Christian. It's worth the visit to come to the island and see both of these museums. So if people have ideas or, thoughts about what some very, very specific museum could do to expand its vision perhaps a little bit. I've thought of inviting umbrella makers or umbrella designers to come and talk and have like a little umbrella conference weekend or something. But it's also volunteers, so getting the person power to involve in this is a bit of a challenge on an island, which has maybe 3,000 residents in the summer. Design your own umbrella, okay, or cover. The covers are easier, but maybe designing without creating. Thank you. That's a good idea. Okay, so that's my spiel right now.
I love that.
Thank you.
This is so cool. I love the idea of celebrating interns. I think that is really, really nice. That's a good way to sort of like keep track of people and recognize their service. Oh, I see. Let's see. Melanie, I believe you had your hand up next, and after that, Kaylee.
Hi.
Great.
Yeah, so right now I'm in between roles, and I wanted to give a shout out to one of my former employers, Windsor Historical Society in Connecticut. 2 events particularly. So when I was there, I was program director, and our executive director was on the path to retirement, and he's since retired. But 2 wonderful ideas that came up just as I was coming on board. They did a new teachers ice cream social the week that the new teachers were onboarding because it's Greater Hartford. So of course there's a ton of turnover. And a lot of those teachers are like, what are some ideas? What are some things I can do? Or how can I just relax? Some of them are coming from like they've just relocated. And because we had a couple of historic houses and a really robust collection and a lot of hands-on items, we had an entire house that was, the first floor is 1810, completely recreated and completely hands-on. So what we did is we invited the school district to have all of their new teachers and anyone else who was interested come to our campus. We got donations for ice cream from one of the local restaurant owners. So they had handmade, homemade ice cream. And so we, the staff, would host people around the museum and we would serve ice cream and kind of give them an orientation to the campus and to all the different programs we did. And then we'd give them like a copy of the newsletter and a sheet of upcoming programs that might be specifically interesting to them or to their families. And I just felt like that was just such a fantastic way to engage with the community. I can't take credit for it, but I just felt like it was one of the most relevant kinds of things I had seen in a long time, especially in an area where it was very hard to keep teachers. Their turnover rate was really high in the region. The other thing that they did on the later end of the school year was, so there's, like many towns in New England, there's this local celebration, the Shad Derby. So it's right at the confluence of the Farmington and Connecticut rivers. And so the running of the shad in the spring is a big deal. And there's a community celebration around it. And so the way that the Historical Society would participate is we had this thing called Fishing for Fun. And it was a family event with kind of like, if you think of the little fun fairs that some of us might have grown up with doing in elementary school. It's that sort of an idea, but it's on the campus. And we invited high schoolers who needed volunteer credits to come and help us work the event. So we would help get them oriented, and they'd have an assignment like, this one, they're going to help the kids make little like stick puppets. And this one, they're going to do prizes for the cornhole tournament. And this one, they're going to monitor the kid. We had kiddie pools, and the kids would do fishing with magnet items. So just things like that, beadwork, all this other stuff. And so, juniors and seniors who needed volunteer credit could come in and get like 6 hours of volunteer time with us. It helped us run a smooth event. And it meant that we were also able to engage more teenagers and, potentially rising board members as well, because we had a couple of positions on the board for youth board members. So it really tied together several different things, and it was nice to bookend the school year by, new teachers on one end of the school year, and then the kids that are, seniors and rising seniors at the end of the year participating. So shout out to them. I wish I could take any credit for it at all. I totally can't, but as far as I know, they're still doing these activities, so it was pretty great.
Oh, thank you for sharing these fantastic ideas. I love this theme I'm hearing of museums that are offering things to people in the community and being kind of community oriented in that way, and not just saying everybody come to us, but we have something to offer you. Here's what we have that will be helpful to you. I think that's fantastic. Love that. I believe it was Kaylee who was next.
Yeah, mine kind of backtracks quite a bit from what we were talking about. I think it was Louise talking about the rejection collection auction, which I thought was a really great idea. When I was working previously at the House of the Seven Gables, they found a whole thing of multiple copies of the same images. And there's like, we don't want to throw them away. And so they put them in the museum store. And so people could purchase them. So, but I think the auction is a way more fun idea for that, but it was along those lines.
Excellent. Yeah, monetize that. Why not? And I think Kathy and then Marcia are next up.
Yeah, so I'm at Lippitt House Museum, and because of the Lippitt family's history of public service, we tend to do programming around civic engagement. And so that's created, and sometimes a natural partner that was established over a decade ago was with the League of Women Voters. And so we have done yearly community conversations, and it's changed. Sometimes it's been very much like they just come up with it, and sometimes it's a real collaboration, but often we've sort of moved to this where it's a collaboration with another partner, like the African Alliance of Rhode Island or Southside Community Land Trust on a particular topical topic. And then what that also means is that when we're inviting them to come to our space for this talk, that we're advertising to each of us is advertising to each of our audiences. So then you really get this idea of sort of three, a little more diversity of people who may never heard of the League of Women Voters, never heard of Lippitt House, coming, or never heard of the African Alliance. So you're getting that merging, but it's a way to, work with an existing organization and just lean into what partner with them on what they are already doing for a shared goal.
Awesome. I love this. Oh, Marcia, I believe you're next.
Yes, hi. So I'm in North Carolina at the Eastern Cabarrus Historical Society. We're about 20 miles from Charlotte. So speaking of partnering with other organizations and museums, for the past, I think, 3 years now, we've set up a summer passport program where we partner with maybe a dozen or so other small museums like ours. And together we create a passport. It's kind of like a book crawl or something like that. And people can pick up the passport at any of the participating museums. And then their goal is through the summer to get a stamp at each of on their passport for each museum they visit. And along the way, a museum might give them a pencil or a sticker or some little low-cost item. Then we do ask people if they complete the passport to turn it in, and they can be entered in a raffle for a prize. We rarely have someone complete the whole thing, so we haven't had to give out a lot of prizes, so it hasn't been very expensive. But it's been a good way just for people to be exposed to other museums and places in the area that they haven't heard of. And I also wanted to mention we're getting ready to do our second homeschool day. We found, the homeschooling population is just growing so much, and they're always looking for opportunities and things to do. And so some of our volunteers teach classes on, for example, getting started with genealogy, classes on local history. We have people come in and demonstrate heritage skills like quilting and things like that. And it's been really successful. The homeschoolers really enjoy the opportunity to come see it. And of course, they can tour our museum at the same time. And so it's been a really good day.
That's awesome. So this actually, I was just thinking about something that my little org did, just sort of inspired by hearing what people are talking about. So we are in a rented space on the 6th floor of a historic building, which is also its own nonprofit. We are the Rosemary Beck Foundation, and we are housed within the Kenkeleba House organization in New York City. And so there's issues of access because it's by invitation only. We don't have regular hours. And so we have this challenge of like how to get people to come to us, which we want people to do, but obviously we also want to do programming and things. So we do have a partnership with the New York Studio School, which is an art school for undergrads and graduate students that is not too far from us. And that's like, and art students, artists, and art faculty are kind of a lot of our target audiences. So we're always thinking, how do we get people to discover us, to come to us, do all this? And so we're trying to do this outreach. And so a couple of years ago, our artist in residence at the time and myself, we sort of made this pitch to the New York Studio School. We said, we wanted to recreate one of Rosemary Beck's slideshow presentations that she had done at the New York Studio School and elsewhere. But we couldn't do it at our space. We were like, could we do it at your space? And they were like, oh, absolutely. And so they hosted it. We came in and we did the presentation, but they hosted it and they put out the word to everybody, and we had a full house. And so we were able to do this whole presentation, do the whole history, who Rosemary Beck was, and then like read from her teaching. So it was sort of like she was still kind of teaching this group of faculty and students. And then afterwards we were like, make sure to schedule your visit to come see our collection and to see our little gallery space and all of that. And so that really kind of like led on. And then since then I've been contacted by faculty members who are like, could I bring my class, my group of students in? And we're like, yes, this is what we want. So that sort of reaching out is really good. And I think when you're able to reach out to somebody and say, I have something for you, that tends to go over really well, as opposed to, please help me or please come to me. I mean, which is fine, but it just that sometimes really leads on to other good things. So yeah, being able to
Doria,
identify your demographic is good. Oh yes, Louise.
Doria, yeah, I'd like to jump in because
Yes.
there are two themes that I've been hearing, that I've been picking up, that I don't think we're emphasizing enough. One is that a lot of the interesting ideas for events come from working with other organizations, other nonprofits, groups, whatever, but also where our audiences often come from are appealing to some other organized group that has the people that we're targeting in it. And I think on both ends of that, we need to try to be very aware of opportunities to work with other people. I've already sent a note to the Umbrella Cover Museum, to Nancy, saying that, we're both in quirky kinds of museums. There's got to be something we can do together. And I think all of us really need to make sure we're keeping our antenna up for opportunities for audience or for collaborators in running events.
For sure. Yeah. And just sort of thinking about what does the community need? How can we serve the community? I remember doing research some years ago and discovering a tiny little museum way out in California, a small local place. And they started reaching out to community and saying, well, what do you need? And like one person said, well, we need a place for our ukulele ensemble to rehearse. And the museum was like, cool. And so like once a month or something, like there, like in the evenings, the ukulele people come in and like use the space. And it's like, well, it's the evening and the space isn't going to be used anyway. So yeah, why not bring in the ukulele folks? And then they hosted like a youth poetry event. The youth poetry people needed a space, and so the museum, and so they've just then there was like a local gardening group that said we want to do gardening, and so now the museum gets free landscaping essentially. So it's that kind of outreach of like, what do you need from us, really seems to have gone over well. Oh, I see. Let's see, Vanessa and then Kathy.
Hi, I'm joining a little late, so I hope this wasn't discussed, but I'm from the Museum of Worcester, formerly Worcester Historical Museum. We just did a rebrand this year. And two things one thing, it's actually worked in different ways, is working with small local businesses and helping get their name out. One thing we did is we worked with local breweries, and we take the Valentine was first manufactured in Worcester. So we take Valentine making crafts, construction paper, lace, doilies, and we bring it to the brewery, and people make Valentines while they drink beer and bring their own food. And it just creates a really nice dialogue. We do a little short presentation in the beginning about the history of Valentines, and then we just kind of mingle with them throughout. It's a nice way to get the museum, out of the building, and share what we do here. The other thing is we have an exhibit up right now called The Poem Next Door, which is about Worcester and poetry. And in the exhibit, we have a vintage typewriter. So we've taken that on the road this summer. We've taken it to different bookstores, breweries, restaurants, small markets, where people can just come up, type a poem, type a letter, and seeing kids who have never seen a typewriter before is extremely entertaining because they don't know how to load the paper. They don't realize that when you make a mistake, you got to start over again. So that's been kind of a fun way to get us out of the building. So I'm interested to hear like what other people have done to get their mission statement and the word about their museum and their programs out of the building.
I'm not going to answer that question, but when Louise talked about collaborating, interstate, it reminded me of a collaboration that we did 2 years and we might resume. It started during the pandemic. We're a Victorian House Museum, so we reached out the first year to Victoria Mansion and said, hey, do you want to do an online virtual talk? And so we found a shared topic that would highlight the history of each of our houses and did a 1-hour talk with Q&A, and they were really well attended. And then we did another one the next year with Maymont Mansion. And it was, so it definitely came out of the pandemic, but I think still in the winter time is something that we might do again if we found the right partner to do that.
Very cool. Oh, somebody in the chat had requested the COINS acronym again, so that has been reposted in there for everybody. And I see Catherine.
Yes, hi. I'm the new curator at the New England Ski Museum in Franconia, New Hampshire, and it's so wonderful to be here and hearing all of your incredible ideas because we're in the process of revamping our public programming that I'm kind of spearheading. So it's been wonderful to hear about all these ideas. And something I was wondering about, just any advice you guys could give on reaching out to the community to really make sure that I'm meeting their needs. And I wasn't sure if that would look like, putting up a sticky note board in our museum and saying that exactly, like, what would you like to see from us? Or like how best, like you talked about reaching out to the communities, but I'm kind of struggling a bit on how best to reach out to them to make that happen. If anyone had any ideas on that, that would be really appreciated.
I'd like to jump in.
Question. Yes.
I'd like to jump in on that a little bit. In my prior life, before I retired and started running a museum, I was a marketing consultant. And one of the things that for smaller organizations that we always pushed was to be very specific and targeted so that you're in a community, you know what your community is. Don't just deal with the people who are already know who you are. Reach out to the local school committee, to the Kiwanis, to the Rotary, to whoever is active. And if you're a ski museum, so there are, I don't ski, I don't know it all, but there have to be organizations of skiers. There have to be companies that are selling things to skiers, but don't count on any kind of a broad appeal. Target and be very specific and don't send a standard letter to everybody. Have an email or a phone call that you're asking them or telling them something that's very specific to them, why this is going to be good for them, and just pound away at it. It's the kind of thing you sometimes can get interns to help with. You give them a script, monitor them a little bit as they start. But that is going to the people that already come to your museum, sure, see what ask them the question, but what you want is to bring new people in.
Yeah, that would be where I think reaching out to, partnerships in the community. And I would say, even though, as museums, we're mostly nonprofits, consider for-profits in your community too. Definitely, like if there are businesses that do things related to skiing, like in your vicinity, reach out to those businesses and say, hey, how can we partner with you? I think sometimes those kinds of partnerships can go pretty well too. They have to be navigated differently, but that's a possibility. Also, I know for myself, for my org, of course, we're an arts oriented organization. Instagram has been incredibly helpful for us for outreach, posting things from our collections for people to see. So social media has been a great way, and I've been amazed by how many people have responded and then contacted me and been interested in programs and other kinds of things. So yeah, I think being really targeted, really specific, very personal, those strike me as very sort of small museum-y things anyways. We've seen a lot of success in that way.
There's also a question in the chat about, do museums charge for outreach programs and how do they financially make it work? And that gets to really thinking about why are you running this event, or what is your goal? And if your goal is to raise some funds, then it becomes very different than if your goal is to get more children in the community involved or something. And I think you have to be really clear at the start. And if you are trying to do things without charging, then looking for sponsorship or for these partnerships we've been talking about can be helpful in one way or another. Another thing that's a little bit risky, but has worked for us and has worked for some other museums, is it's a free event. We welcome a donation. And at one point we gave away paintings. We also gave away t-shirts. We had some t-shirts we had made that weren't selling. You're welcome to take a t-shirt. Be $5 donation would be appreciated. And most people gave 10 or 20 who took the t-shirts. But somehow when you don't demand it, and it sometimes people become more generous.
I do want to say that somebody further up in the chat had suggested libraries as a place to potentially put up information or share or swap or reach out. And I got to give a shout out to the libraries, because I feel like, that's sort of goes back into my history. I'm very, very fond of libraries and I like to spend time there. But yeah, they're often wonderful resources in the communities. And I think kind of models potentially for small museums for how to be a resource. Libraries do nothing but, to me, it seems, but give and give. And not I mean, past the level that most museums can do, and yet there's a lot of good ideas there, and it's free help. So yeah, I'm very, very much in favor of free help for sure. Ooh, old-fashioned bake sales. Yeah. Who doesn't like a homemade baked good, for goodness sakes? Yeah. Yeah. A lot of things that work for schools or libraries will work for museums too. For sure. How are we doing? Whoa, we're down to our last 8 minutes. Anybody else have cool ideas? I do love the chat.
I can add something that we just did that is a way to, I would say, take advantage of what you have in your collection. So we are located on a former college campus, would have been, like finishing high school, beginning college, opened in the 1850s, closed in the 1930s. And we have here a lot of the records and materials related to that school, which was called Mount Pleasant Collegiate Institute. One of the things that students did every year as part of the commencement activities was the junior class put on a debate, and we have all their debate speeches. So for the last 2 years, we've recreated the debate. We just did one on Sunday. The topic was war is inconsistent with Christianity. And so we found 6 local pastors to read the speeches, which were, for 18, 20-year-old young men 100 years ago. They were very thoughtful, very interesting. A lot of their points still very relevant today. We had a great turnout and really interesting discussion afterwards. And so people are now saying, when are you going to do that again? Do that again. And so it's just been a fun way to take things that were just sitting here in our file cabinet and bringing them to life.
I love it. That is so terrific. Yeah.
What museum was
Capitalize on
that?
what you
Sorry,
have.
what museum was she with? What museum were you with that you spoke about just now?
It's the Eastern Cabarrus Historical Society in Mount Pleasant, North Carolina.
Thank you.
Yay. That sounds very similar to what we did when we found I found a whole bunch of lecture notes left over from Rosemary Beck from her teaching, and we basically kind of recreated that sense of being in her classroom, and that went over really, really well, especially with our target audience. So yeah, it's amazing how you can find things from earlier times that retain their relevance.
And that's also getting to that idea of something that is unique, that's distinctive, that really is, not another, I'm going to insult somebody, but, not another landscape painting, that it's something that sets it apart.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's been, for quite a while, my museum, we've thought of ourselves pretty much just as a museum, and we've really been expanding our thinking and recognizing that we're also a historic artist studio site, essentially. So we are an art site, and we are also a history site, and we're kind of trying to honor and consider those multiple elements, and it's really expanded upon what we can offer. Because yes, we can offer like an art experience and looking at art, and that's fine, but when we really delve into the history of Rosemary Beck, that particular person, and as a teacher and that time in New York, it suddenly expands tremendously on what we potentially have to offer. So that may be another thing, is to like look back within your collections and look back in the history of your building and consider, like, you may have a lot more to offer than you even realize. Oh my gosh, we're down to our last 4 minutes. This may be the time, Louise, could you let us know what we're going to be doing next month?
Actually, I want to highlight Patty's comment. I think that's awesome, by the way.
Yes. Yes, this last comment.
Yeah.
She said, Patty Benson says, we've done an Are You Smarter Than an Eighth Grader, using questions from state tests giving to rural eighth graders from our rural school eighth graders from our collections. I love that. In September, we're going to be very lucky to have Laura Roberts. Many of you know Laura, who's a past president of the New England Museum Association. And Laura is probably the country's leading expert on boards, board development, board issues for nonprofits, particularly for museums. So Laura is going to talk to us about what are some of the board issues that small museums face, In particular, many people are forming boards or they're not using the boards in the way they ought to, things like that. We'll get a little more description out over the next few days, but it's going to be something really important for all of us to think about, whether you already have a board or you don't, and are wondering if you must or if you should create one.
Yes. Oh, and there's a link in the chat. It's Tuesday, September 30th, noon to 1, which is our usual time, free through New England Museums Association. Thank you all so much for joining us. My goodness. And I think our NEMA folks may have something that they want to add just to close out this fantastic open forum session.
We have two things. I'll go first. I'm going to hand it over to Heather. So as you all know, you all probably know, the New England Museum Association Conference is happening in November. We are in the final throes of getting everything ready. We're working on our program books. We've nailed down all the logistics. We're hoping, fingers crossed, we're hoping to launch conference and open registration next week. So be on the lookout in your emails and on social media for details about that. We'll have details related to, already on our website actually, is hotel. If you're interested in staying overnight in Manchester, we're in Manchester, New Hampshire this year. We'll have details about volunteering, scholarships. Our program book will go live. Registration, all of it. So right now, NEMA staff is getting that out into the world. But once that goes live, if you have any questions at all, big or small, let one of us know. We were happy to help. And we look forward to seeing you in Manchester. And I'm going to hand it over to Heather.
I'm just going to plug the Museum Document Exchange again. Again, if you guys have any policies that you're willing to share, please check out our website. And we will definitely be in touch on that one. Jen, do you have the dates for the annual conference are November 5th through the 7th?
Yes.
And I love that other people are putting our dates in there too. So
yep,
that's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having it in your calendar already.
Yes.
Looking forward to seeing a lot of you there. I'm seeing Michelle Walker. I'm looking forward to seeing you and give you a big hug in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing you all there. And we will have a small museums pad lunch and a small museums session back to back. So there's an extended, like, dedicated time for small museums, in addition to all the other robust programming that we have put in place this year. So any questions at all, send them along about anything that NEMA does, PAGS, conference, museum, document exchange, networking, whatever you are interested in, let us know.
Yeah,
all right.
Look forward to seeing you at the conference. And in the meantime, look forward to seeing you next month, September 30th.
Yay. All right, folks, thanks so much. Have a great day. Enjoy the beautiful weather, and we'll see you at late September.
Thanks.